Hey, it's 9:33, Big 550 KTRS. Many people are calling it a bombshell, an October surprise. FBI Director James Comey came out, wrote a letter that became public on Friday saying that he is going to look into the email controversy again with Hillary Clinton and her emails. To put this into perspective, we go to the man, Mr. Ed Dowd, who is a founder and partner of a very prestigious law firm here in town, Dowd Bennett. Ed Dowd, welcome back to Big 550 KTRS.
Thank you, McGraw. It's great to be here with you.
Let's get a couple of conflicts of interest out of the way. You are a friend of the show?
Yes, very much so.
Your son used to be a valued member of our show?
Yes, Andrew.
And did you once sit on the board at the Big 550 KTRS?
Yes, I was for some years, yes.
Okay. And the most important disclosure, you're one very nice man.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
My mother thought so, too.
All right, let's get to it. As a former U.S. attorney watching this from where you sit, what are your thoughts when you heard Mr. Comey do this on Friday?
I was mystified, really. It's so contrary to everything that you're taught in the Department of Justice. First of all, it's just a very commonly understood that you do not do anything that interferes with an election. And that applies whether you're talking about somebody running for dog catcher or mayor or senator. Certainly running for president, that applies even more strictly. You just don't do anything that interferes with an election. And to do this 11 days before an election that has been such a bizarre election to start with is just beyond the pale. The second rule or policy that has been grossly violated, in my opinion, is that you are not allowed to comment on ongoing investigations. And the reasons for that are obvious. Just saying the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office is investigating someone hurts their credibility, hurts their image, hurts their reputation. So you never do that until you know what the answers are in the investigation. Jim Comey actually said, we don't know if there's anything bad in here. I haven't even seen them yet. I haven't even read them yet. So the whole thing is just really beyond belief to me.
So he hasn't even started the investigation, and as you said, hasn't even seen the emails. So he announced that he's going to possibly start another investigation, but first has to look at more emails? Was that what he said on Friday?
Yes, that's what he said. He said that he's not saying that anybody did anything wrong, but he does think he needs to tell Congress for some reason, 11 days before an election, that they're beginning kind of a side investigation after he's already closed the other one and found that there was that Hillary Clinton and her aides hadn't misled the FBI or had any criminal intent. And then to throw this, what one person described this as an ambiguity bomb, because he doesn't really say anything other than there's an investigation, which, people have been indicted for that before, for disclosing the fact that there's an investigation going on. And when Jack Danforth and I were doing the Waco investigation, we had to terminate an employee because they disclosed information to the press. And that's the way those investigations should be run. Nobody knows anything. Nobody discloses anything. If you don't charge anyone, that's the end of it, and no one's reputation has been destroyed. If you do charge someone, you go ahead and do that in the correct legal way.
I don't understand, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, but while investigating Anthony Weiner's situation, they came across some other emails, and so I'm confused about how they link Anthony Weiner's situation and his emails back to Hillary's email server.
I don't know if they have, and that's just another example of how ambiguous the whole thing is. I mean, they haven't even said we're looking at any emails that Hillary Clinton is even on.
Do you think, Ed Dowd, that he will say anything between now and Election Day? Because both sides are now begging him to say something more. You can't just, leave it out there and then not say anything between now and the election.
He's really put himself in an impossible position by violating two Department of Justice policies, not to interfere with an election and not to disclose the fact of an investigation or what's happening in an investigation. So discussing it even more, I don't know. That's a hard one, to advise him. Yeah, go ahead and disclose more about an investigation. Go further than you already have in violating clear department policy. I don't know what he should do, honestly, other than he should probably say, "I'm sorry, I did this. This should be ignored."
Ed Dowd, there are reports now in the Wall Street Journal and in other outlets saying that there was a fight internally about whether he should or shouldn't have, and whether he should or shouldn't have gone further in the first round back in the late summer. How often do these arguments go on behind the scenes, and then ultimately they speak with one voice?
There are always discussions going on in the Department of Justice, really at all levels, about what's the correct way to go forward here. But what happened here, as I understand it, and I'm not sure if this is just what I read, that the Attorney General was recommending to the FBI that they do not do this, and was telling them, don't do this right before the election. This would be inappropriate. It's inappropriate any time, but particularly right before an election, and that was ignored.
Yeah.
That's extremely unusual, and just like this announcement 11 days before an election is unprecedented, in my opinion.
In these hyper-partisan times, though, one could say, Loretta Lynch is in the Clinton campaign. Comey is a Republican. She was only doing this for political purposes, and he was only doing it for political purposes.
I know Loretta Lynch. She was the U.S. Attorney when I was the U.S. Attorney here in St. Louis. And I think she is very principled, and if her position was, let's not disclose this, that the fact that there's an investigation without more 11 days before an election, that's the correct position to take here. That's very clear to me. I'm sure that when she goes to the voting booth, she's going to vote for Hillary Clinton. But regardless of that, the advice she's giving, or the direction she was giving not to disclose this, is the correct approach.
Ed Dowd, there are people out there who are saying, hey, wait a minute. If a candidate is under FBI investigation, shouldn't I be allowed to know that so I can make my own decision on whether or not I should vote for this person or not?
No, that's exactly wrong, because the fact that you're under investigation, of course, you're presumed innocent under the U.S. Constitution, and the fact that you're under investigation doesn't mean you've done anything wrong at all. It may mean that somebody who doesn't like you has made some false accusations about you. It doesn't have anything to do with, it's certainly not any proof that you've done anything wrong. And you mentioned earlier that, that there was some criticism of Comey when he first disclosed this back in, I guess, late summer. And he shouldn't have done it then either. All you're supposed to do, if an investigation has been done, and then someone says, the target of the investigation says, hey, this has been leaking out from the FBI or from whoever, which is, there are a lot of allegations about that in this case as well, that there have been just a series of leaks from the Department of Justice, obviously inappropriately, that then at the end of the investigation, if your reputation has been damaged because of leaks, you have a right to go to the U.S. Attorney or the Department of Justice and say, I want you to write a letter to me saying that I have been cleared, that I'm not going to be charged with any crimes. You have a right to do that. But I don't think that was done in this case. And so the government's not supposed to just say, hey, by the way, we did an investigation here, and we cleared her. There's no criminal intent. But let me tell you some other things that I think are really negative about her. That's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do as a law enforcement official in this country, because you are presumed innocent, and you're not supposed to be using the grand jury or grand jury information to attack a candidate for office.
former U.S. attorney with us, Ed Dowd, also the founder and partner of Dowd Bennett here in town. One more question for you, Ed, and thanks for taking time on a busy day for you.
Very happy to.
So back in late summer, I guess, when he announced that there weren't going to be any charges and he wasn't recommending charges to the Attorney General, and he said no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges in this type of case. How much of that, when he said that, everyone said he's a principled man, agree or disagree with him, but he's a very principled man. The same people who were saying that then aren't necessarily saying that now. Or what are we to think of this man who was so very principled back in the fall, now makes such a egregious mistake now? Explain that to me.
I honestly can't explain it, McGraw. For a guy who has been the U.S. attorney in New York and to be the head of the FBI, to just ignore the policy that we're not to interfere in elections and we're not to disclose what's going on in an investigation, it's inexplicable. He should not have done that. He's in clear violation of those policies.
And you also say now that he's rung the bell, it's almost impossible to walk it back.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't know what he should do other than, like I said before, maybe he should just say, I shouldn't have done this, I apologize, try to ignore it. I know it's virtually impossible, but try to ignore it because we don't have any answers for you at all.
How much of a topic of conversation is this amongst you and other former U.S. attorneys?
Very much so. And there have been, a letter was sent to James Comey by 100 former U.S. attorneys and Department of Justice officials and Attorney General Holder telling him that what he's done is wrong.
We're hearing there are a lot of, because you served under the Clinton administration.
Yes.
We're hearing that there are a lot of conservative prosecutors who are agreeing with you in this regard.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I mean, it's not really a controversial position that you shouldn't be disclosing what's happening in an investigation and you shouldn't be influencing an election. I mean, the Hatch Act makes it a crime to use a public official's position to influence an election. And I'm not saying he committed a crime because you have to prove that he intended to influence the election. But it's sure an unfortunate thing that he did.
Ed Dowd, we'll let you go. Thanks for your insights. Have a good day.
Okay, McGraw, you too. Thank you.
Got it. Ed Dowd, who is a former U.S. attorney in terms of full disclosure, one very nice gentleman, and I believe I have spent a couple of evenings at his farm having a very nice time. He is founder and partner of Dowd Bennett, which is one of the most prestigious law firms here in St. Louis. All the big cases always use Dowd Bennett, so it's a well-respected firm. Ed Dowd and Mr. Bennett, two very powerful attorneys here in town. Ed Dowd getting you an insight to something you wouldn't normally hear from. Very interesting stuff. 9:46 here, Big 5.